Good morning, everyone, and welcome to How to Retain Top Talent. I'm Vinny Civitello, Communications Manager for the New Jersey Business and Industry Association. With us today is Cristina Amyot of Enform HR. A few housekeeping matters before we get started. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be emailed to you tomorrow along with the PowerPoint for today's presentation, so be on the lookout for those. I'd also like to draw your attention to the Questions tab. Cristina would be happy to take all of your questions, so don't hesitate to write them in as they come to you, and I can't stress that enough. Write them in as they come to you, or you might forget what you wanted to ask by the time we get to the Q&A. Also, today's webinar is being brought to you by the NJBIA Job Board. On the board, employers looking for employees can post job openings to find qualified candidates. The job posts have member and non-member pricing. Individuals can search for jobs, set up job alerts, find helpful career tips, and upload anonymous resumes to be seen by recruiters and employers. There are also career resource pages and resume review tools. To learn more or get started, visit careercenter.njbia.org. So now let's get things started. Cristina?
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining. My name is Cristina Amyot. I am president and owner of Enform HR, which is a human resources consulting firm located in Tinton Falls, New Jersey. I want to take just a couple of minutes to give you a little bit of background about myself, just because I think it will be relevant to our presentation moving forward. So I started in human resources about 20 years ago, and excuse me real quick. And much probably like a lot of you, I fell into it. It wasn't something that I studied in college, and I got hired for a market research position running projects, and we needed to, because we were a small company, we needed to actually hire our own staff to run some of the projects. And that's when the owner said, hey, you're pretty decent at this hiring thing, why don't you take over hiring for the company? So that's what I did. I took over hiring for a call center. Those of you who have hired for some of those types of jobs know that that's particularly difficult and stressful and challenging, low-paying jobs with high stress and turnover. And I did that, and then eventually became HR manager for the company as a whole, and started hiring for mid-level positions and hire more executive positions. During that time, because I didn't have formal education in HR, throughout that time span, I was pursuing my certifications, and then eventually went to Rutgers to start pursuing my master's degree. I had gone on to payroll company that provided the consulting model for HR that I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. And I realized at that point that a lot of these small to mid-sized companies didn't have full-time HR, and me handing them a template didn't really work, and they needed more hands-on guidance. So about 10 years ago, with my master's under my belt, I opened our company. We're a team of 5 people now, with about clients in about 20 different states, and give or take about 200 clients. Some of them are more active and regularly using us. Some are more passive. And again, I'm telling you this so that you understand the scope of where I'm coming from with this presentation. Our industries run from private to, we have a few that are publicly traded, a few union shops, everything from PR firms to pharmaceutical market research to gyms, salons, professional services, and we were doing everything from providing as needed HR, like a handbook here and non-harassment training there, to full outsourced HR when it's needed, including recruiting and hiring. So it's from this perspective that I'm covering today's topic, which is about attracting, retaining talent in today's tight job market, because this is where we're coming from, whether we are the outsourced HR in a company handling this for the company, or we are guiding whoever is the internal HR on these topics. So with that being said, part of the reason that we're focusing so much on retention as the new recruitment today is simply because it's a job seekers market. So it used to be that I would come to a company thrilled that I am being considered for a position, heard about your reputation, so excited to come on board, and the ball would be completely in your court as the hiring manager. And it would be all about, how do I impress you, and I be as a candidate trying more to figure out, am I going to be good enough for you to hire me? And we know that with the exodus of baby boomers in the market right now, and we also have unemployment at a record low. So unemployment's at a record low. we have an exodus of a large section of the workforce. And so we're looking at a labor shortage. There's simply a smaller pool of employees. You add to that the average earnings for employees are up 2.6% over last year, and the median household income has increased. So when you have all of this, you can really see how the tables have turned. The ball is in the employees or the candidates' court. And there's such a shift now from employee engagement, which used to be all the buzz, and those of you regularly handling HR and business operations know that. It was all about employee engagement, how do we get people committed, how do we make sure they're productive, and now the shift is much more to the employee experience and to the emphasis on employee culture. So you have qualified job seekers who are basically able to find work more easily. And you have employers now who are going the extra mile to figure out how to not just attract, and we will talk about attracting employees too, because these retention initiatives are going to be, for those hiring managers on the phone, what you're going to be marketing as you're going out to hire people. And for you HR managers on the phone and on the webinar, this is going to be some of the policies that you're instituting as well, and we'll go over that. But that's going to be what's really important, to make sure that you're attracting key talent, and critically, really, especially more and more, that you're retaining key talent. Because even those of you who love recruiting understand that a lot of times it's a hamster wheel, and the median cost per hire is at least 21%, depending on which survey you look at, of an employee's annual salary. And that's just the cost, the financial cost to hire them. That's not the emotional cost of, the frustration of filling a position, and then you have turnover, how that's impacting morale, how that's impacting productivity. So we know this as well. So that being said, let's turn to millennials in the workplace, just so we're all on the same page, give or take. Again, every source gives you slightly a different year, but you're looking at millennials being born between 81 and 96, and so that gives them around a 21 to 37 year range in the workplace. And that means that more than 1 in 3, 35% of working Americans are millennials, and they will make up 75% of the workforce by 2025. So that is huge, and that's why this presentation is focusing so much on them. Gen Z are right behind them, but we could touch briefly on that if we want to when we get to the Q&A session. It's up to those of you on the phone, but they're not that much different from the millennials, and you're still going to have the millennials as being the bulk of your workforce for some time. And you have now the bulk of your workforce being millennials. You need to realize another stat. 2/3 of millennials think they will leave their current employer by 2020. Now, it's interesting because one of the other things we do as a firm is we do a lot of non-harassment discrimination training. And those of you who handle a lot of those issues know that under New Jersey LAD, age discrimination is defined differently from the Age Discrimination Act federally, which is over 40 federally, and New Jersey is any age over 18, which I find so relevant now. Because the prejudice I used to hear when I first started in HR was, don't hire someone over 40. They'll be close to retirement. Oh, wouldn't that be nice? They'll be close to retirement. They'll be high wage earners. They won't know how to use technology. They won't be nimble. They won't be quick. I sound like I'm doing a rhyme here. And that was the logic. And a lot of you know now that when you go into a conference, professional conference, or when you're talking with other people in your field, a lot of the complaining is around the younger workforce. And there are a lot of employers now who are saying, hey, give me someone older, give me someone who I feel I can trust, who has that experience, who has that work ethic. That's a misnomer as well, because millennials don't necessarily have a poor work ethic. And this notion that they will job hop, it is statistically true, but the reasons behind it are a lot more substantial than people give them credit for, or don't give them credit for, which is that, oh, they're just flakes and they're always looking for something better. So we'll talk about that, but you basically have a generation of people who are willing to walk away from a comfortable, well-paying position if other parts of their needs aren't being met. And if you look at the slide we just went over, they can do that. They can go across the street and get a job, probably making more money. So let's talk about some of the best ways to engage them and to keep them with you. The first is loyalty and stability. So they're constantly accused of job hopping. We know that. But what's interesting is that they actually want some of the same benefits as other generations, which are growth opportunities, job stability, and a competitive salary. So you have millennials here have held 2.29 jobs over the past 5 years. That's a switch every 26 months. That's definitely more than other generations. However, again, when you look at what they're looking for, 89% say they would stay with the same company 10 years or more if just two of their criteria were met, which would be opportunities for upward career mobility, aka growth, and a regular increase in compensation. Well, I bet every one of you on the phone would want a company that would at least potentially offer you growth. Many of you might be fine in the position you're at and just enjoy that, and there's nothing wrong with that, but there are people who want growth, and you definitely would probably want a regular increase in compensation. The truth is, oftentimes you can't get that without job hopping. And I see it a lot, and those of you hiring probably see it as well. So for instance, let's say you have a job, the employee is making $50,000 a year. You know, how many of you had that employee come to you and say, hey, listen, I looked at the job market, I think this position is worth 55. You know, I'm being offered 55 at another company. You know, I really think this is what I should make. And you go and you bring that to your executive team, and they go, you know what, if he or she thinks they're so great, good, go. Great. And you're thinking, oh my gosh, this person knows what they're doing. By the way, I think the position's worth 55. Then now you're in charge of going out and hiring for the position. Well, what do you go out and find in the market? You can't hire someone unless you pay them 57, 60. And that ends up being the reality. And now you're hiring a newbie to your organization that you need to train up, when the person who was there, had we just been paying them appropriately, probably wouldn't have left. So your millennials aren't as afraid to change jobs because they see what's out there. And if the truth is that staying employed at the same company for over 2 years, on average, is going to make you earn less over your lifetime by about 50% or more. Now, that's something that we as employers need to change. That's our fault, in my opinion, because we need to be, and the economy will make us change this, by the way. The fact that the unemployment rate is so low and the talent pool is so small is going to make employers have to say, wow, we're going to have to increase our salaries to be more competitive. But that's why you have so much job hopping. I do a lot of exit interviews for our clients. Again, a lot of them do have HR, but they want an outside firm to do the exit interview and then report back the results. And I can't tell you how many times people are leaving because they feel that they're not valued. Compensation is a part of it, but they're also able to go to another job and get 2 times as more and training. And had they just been able to get that at their organization, they would have stayed. So millennials are not heartless. If you invest in them, they will invest in you. Okay, they want a lot of the same things that a lot of other generations want, and we'll go over that. But what I want to caution you all is that one size doesn't fit all. So we're going to go over a lot of different things that can be offered. One of the things I see companies doing is they go out and prescribe what their consumer, their employer, their candidate is going to want. You know, that worked very well with Steve Jobs and Apple when he said, hey, I'm going to tell you, consumer, what you want. Brilliant. We all look at him like he's a mastermind. In most companies and in most marketplaces, I don't think that works. I think in most companies and most marketplaces, you need to tailor to your consumer. So saying, you know, and I should have put this slide up here for those of you who watch Office Space, which I do routinely after a bad day of HR. You know, those of you who remember the, you know, Hawaiian shirt to work day. It's like, wow, that's going to make me feel motivated here. And that's what a lot of companies will do, whether it's a company picnic, whether it's a floating holiday. None of these things are bad things, but are they going to be what's really going to make somebody feel connected with you? So I'm going to go through the next slides, talk about a couple of areas that you might be able to create and promote in your organization. Take it if it works for you. If it doesn't, don't. But think about seriously doing regular surveys with your employees. I call them pulse surveys. We design a lot of them for our clients and execute, you know, hence the benefit of me starting in a market research company. Again, a lot of organizations, not enough, do exit interviews. It's a great lagging indicator, but how about in real time getting the feedback and then being able to put things through? So your vision and your purpose as a company. Most companies these days have outlined them. It's not the 80s where mission statements is a new word. So most of this is there, but are you marketing that and are you defining it? Are you adding things like core competencies to your performance reviews and to your job descriptions and promoting that as an organization? Most of the companies that I work with, when they go to hire someone, up until recently, because again, with the labor shortage and the economy, up until recently, they could find somebody who technically can do the job. They've got the degree, they've got the experience, whatever that might be. However, they don't hire that person, or they select someone over another candidate. Why is that? It's because of these links to company culture, the core competencies that make you say, hey, that's the person for my organization. That's the fit here. That aligns with the vision and purpose. And more companies are doing competency-based performance appraisals and outlining those and starting to market those, which is really smart because millennials want to know, and quite frankly, I think most people want to know what they're doing for the organization and how that's making a difference. Even the most arbitrary tasks, they want to know how they're part of the bigger picture. So just 40% of millennials feel that they're strongly connected to their company's mission. And I think a lot of that has to do with companies are moving so fast that the company mission is something that's on the website. And it's not, again, integrated and disseminated throughout the organization, which can be done in a number of different ways. 67% of millennials who strongly agree that their company's missions make them feel their job is important report feeling engaged at work. So rallying employees around a mission and purpose dramatically increases their engagement. And they feel motivated when they feel that their jobs have meaning and impacts their work, and they feel valued. Now, again, those of us like myself, I'm in the Gen X generation. I don't want to do work for the purpose of doing work and having it have no value. The difference is that millennials might be, as a generation, more inclined to leave a good job than maybe my generation would over some of these factors. Also, in a different economy, me as a Gen Xer can walk across the street and get a job where I feel like I'm not just spinning my wheels. So again, that's where this becomes so important. So some of the action steps that you can take is bring clarity to roles and responsibilities. Some of you on the line might be in smaller companies. I'm not sure, but a lot of our companies that are under 50 employees oftentimes don't have set job descriptions. And the feeling is that that's not so important. Hey, we're a small company. We're only 20 people. Everyone helps out around here. No one really has a job. They all help out around here. Well, we all know that that's not true. The person who's handling your books is not necessarily the person doing your PR or doing your marketing or doing your sales. People do have defined roles, and we know as HR you always have that caveat of perform other duties as assigned. And you know, we don't need to get into all the different compliance reasons to have job descriptions in terms of hiring fairly and Americans with Disabilities Act, but you'd be surprised how many people, employees, ask, where is my job description for the position during the hiring phase, and how few companies I work with that give the job description out and regularly make that available. So bring clarity to that and explain the why and big picture behind projects and tasks. So more of my firms are having town halls with their employees, doing regular newsletters, or even just when they're doing team meetings, going over that. And promote the company's mission and values. One of my clients, I worked with them on the core competencies. Core competencies aren't that hard to define, really. And, you know, when I walked into NJBIA today, in the lobby, they have their core values bulleted out. Those basically are your core competencies. So when I'm working with the executive team, I basically say, hey, just start giving me adjectives of what a great employee would be here and what would be a great fit. Oh, collaborative, because we work in a lot of teams. Oh, they need to be really flexible because our customer base changes their minds every 2 seconds. Oh, they need to be really accountable because people here do oftentimes work in silos, so they need to be able to take the ball, run with it, and bring it all the way to the finish line. And then as I start saying that, I can start kind of wordsmithing that for them and actually bring that down, because you really need to define what those things are. Every company says teamwork. It means different things to different company. companies. Every company says communication. It means different things to different companies, and really drill that down. And what one of my clients did is they went and hired a PR firm that went and made a video where the business owners and the department heads talked about the core competencies and why they're important and described what that means and what that looks like in the organization. And the video is beautifully done. And if any of you, afterward would like to be given the contact info to the person who put it together, I'm happy to refer you because the work was really amazing. And the company said to me, we're using this as part of our orientation to onboard new employees. So meaning your first day, you would watch this video that would describe what the company's like. And I said, hey, use this for recruiting. Put this on your website. Put this on, add the link in when you're posting a job, because who wouldn't want to work for an organization like this? So that's what we really need to do, is make sure that we're promoting these. Positive social atmosphere. Happy workers are 10% more productive at work. Employees obviously do their best work when their basic needs are met and their work environment is conducive to happiness. Again, one size doesn't fit all here. The feeling, the trends that we see of open concept offices. Can't tell you how many exit interviews I do where people are leaving offices because they're too cool. And I don't mean chilly, meaning I don't have any privacy. I can't concentrate. I don't have a real chair. I'm not joking with you. We have some clients where it's a beanbag or it's a bar stool and it's not a bar, and it's a very cool, it's very hip, and employees aren't comfortable. They're not physically comfortable. And again, they will leave for those things. I had a millennial who's like, I know this sounds silly and I should love this, but I'm in, one shared long table with a bunch of other employees and I can't hear myself think, and I'm working on heavy numbers. It's not, as a millennial, I know I should love this environment. It's not me. So it's very important to make sure that you're looking at that and what's really important for employees. Sorry, I clicked too fast there. Fostering happiness means creating more meaningful connections between coworkers. And 88% of millennials do want to work in more social workplaces, but you, again, one size doesn't fit all, need to find out what that is and what social is to them. And do they have enough private spaces? Do they have enough of their own equipment to make them feel comfortable? So, humans are wired for connecting with others. Face-to-face interaction is so important, and it promotes greater collaboration. So that definitely is something that's important here. Millennials tend to want to work from home a little bit less. They do like to, but not as much as some of the other generations because they're getting a lot of their social interactions at work, but be careful about how you're designing those workspaces. So a couple of different action steps here. Create warm and open workspaces. That's very important. I had one company that went from siloed offices to an open work plan, but it's not warm. The whole idea there was to have employees be able to desk hop, so they'd be, no set desk. So you could just put your stuff, plug in, and work anywhere. And they moved from an office environment where their concern was that more junior employees would feel less valued because they don't have these nice offices. So they went and decided to have an open concept plan where people would feel more warm and inviting. Yet the open concept plan, because they're all hopping from desk to desk, when you walk through it, is actually a more sterile environment because no one has a plant, no one has a photo, no one has a mug, because they're hopping from desk to desk every time that they're in. So you actually find a little bit of a lack of intimacy and lack of warmth when you're there. Not necessarily a bad thing if it works for your organization, but take a look at that. Encourage a more casual dress code. I'm sure most of you have done that already. We do have a couple of firms that it's still a suit and tie kind of world, but more and more we have companies where jeans is not a Friday thing. It's a regular thing. And and being able to be comfortable at work. I mean, at my work, so we dress business casual to go out to clients because I'm in HR. If I dress in a suit to go to a client, everyone thinks they're getting fired, right? So it's very uncomfortable as it is when I go on site to a client if people aren't kind of expecting it. I've got to kind of look like I'm one of the people. But if I'm going to my manufacturing clients, I'm not dressed in an Ann Taylor dress. I'm dressed in jeans and boots, so that I'm fitting in just a little bit more. And in our particular office where my staff works, we dress, and I'm not joking, in like leggings and flip-flops and Ugg boots unless we're going out to see a client. Because my feeling is work is hard enough as it is, be comfortable. So think about those things. I still see a little bit of the old guard where companies will want a very strict dress code, and I'm not necessarily sure that that ties into productivity. And create opportunities for interaction. Again, remember the one size fits all here. Not everyone's going to want a happy hour, and we all know from a compliance standpoint those can be dangerous places where people end up saying and doing things that cause for meetings the next day. You know, you hear the trends, ping pong tables, pool tables. I think a big thing, and we'll get into it in a couple different slides, is maybe some volunteer work, which creates impromptu team building activities. But millennials tend to believe that somewhere in our society we took a wrong turn, where we started drawing a line between our professional lives and our personal lives. And think about that. Where do you spend most of your time? It's at work. So the idea to come into work and have such a divide really becomes difficult for them. And they're really looking for their work families. And again, in more and more of my exit interviews, I'm seeing people leave and say, you know, it's just different now. It's too, I don't know, people don't socialize enough. People don't, and it's not just socializing, I should be more specific. It's not just socializing with a long lunch. So I went into one company that used to be, they work really, really hard and work a lot of hours. But it's gotten to the point now where when you walk in, no one even looks up and no one even says hi because they're so chained to their desk doing so much work. And what you have is on the exit interviews, people who are already working 60 hours a week, nothing really changed with that. It's just there was no interaction then within the 60 hours a week. There was no joking. There was no quick, let's grab a cup of coffee. There was no casual interface because they were so short-staffed and they were so churning and growing so quickly that basically just work wasn't fun. So think about that as well, because sometimes it's better to have more employees and slightly, I don't know how to put this, but like a little less work and productivity, because the productivity then becomes greater when they have that chance to have some interaction at work. Ongoing training, as I mentioned, development is so huge for millennials. Now, what's interesting is development was important for other age groups in the workplace, like the boomers and the Gen Xers, but that development with us was more about being able to be promoted or being able to have continuing education or go back for a degree. Okay, with the millennials, it's more the opportunity to learn and grow, whatever that happens to mean. Whether it's trying a new task, helping out in a different department, taking an online course, that's very important to them. Compared to if you look at the baby boomers, only 40% report that this is extremely important. You have 72% of millennials who'd like to be their own boss. You know, I am a boss, little do they know what a picnic that can be. And then of those that realize, hey, can't be my own boss, what they want, 79%, want their boss to serve more as a coach or a mentor. And that's very important for them, to feel that they have somebody that they can go to bounce ideas off of. Now, what's interesting, being in HR, we know that we can't be employees' friends when they're bosses. So, and we have to sometimes make tough decisions. So what one of my clients has done is they have your direct supervisor who handles stuff like approving time off, performance management, assigning tasks, reviewing productivity and goals, and then a career manager who's almost kind of like your career counselor who works, you know, while keeping the supervisor in the loop, but is almost kind of like your work therapist from a business standpoint of talking about goals and how to get there as an employee. So you have 75% of millennials that state that having a mentor is critical to their success. And you've seen a lot of companies that now when somebody comes on board will kind of assign someone to be their mentor for the week or shadow them. So that's important. So think about creating tech-friendly and interactive trainings or giving people opportunity to take them. Even things like something like this NJBIA webinar, that's a huge opportunity for employees, and I'm sure you feel this way too, to be able to sit there with a cup of coffee at your desk and listen to this. And there are other companies that will say, hey, no, you're learning and that's great, but do that at your own time. It's, it's 11:30 and we've got to get into a meeting, and then you feel like you're not valued. Train managers to mentor. So first, you need to train managers to manage, because most managers don't know how to manage, and it's not because they're stupid. It's because most don't go to a management school. Most people who are promoted into management were great at their job. Most people that you're hiring coming in for management who even have management experience probably still never received really training or mentoring on management. They still were, quote, great at their job. So, and as HR, you've had to train managers on how to give constructive feedback, pitfalls to avoid, having to take complaints seriously, and how to report them up. And I'm sure you've worked closely with them on performance management and how to write things out, how to have that conversation. You also need to train them on how to mentor. Everybody manages differently, and I would think that you probably have a lot of managers who don't delegate because it's easier for them to do it themselves. So when an employee comes to them, they're not mentoring and teaching, they're just doing it, or they're assigning tasks. Part of that could be an internal strain and that they just don't have the time, and that's something you can assist with HR as well, and figure out how to get them that time and how to work around and how to get solutions. But I think it's very important for them to see how important that is. And for some of your managers, this whole notion of mentoring is going to be annoying as heck. One more thing they got to do, particularly if they're of a different generation that's going to see why do these people need so much hand-holding? What do you mean mentor? Come in, sit down, do your job. It's not that difficult. And that could be some of the pushback that you're getting. But it's very important for you guys to push back against that, because that is the reality that you're in. And encourage reverse mentoring, which is actually having more junior employees sometimes mentor a more senior one. So we tend to think that the more senior employees, and I'm not talking just in age, I'm talking in experience, position, title, they're the ones with all the knowledge, they're the ones with all the experience. Not necessarily. And there's something that people can learn from others. I have one client, which I love that they do this. They tend to hire very educated, experienced individuals for their particular job because of the type of job that it is. It's really required to have that breadth of knowledge for certain of these positions. And other positions, a minority of them, you can be relatively a newbie. You can be just out of college. You can have little to no experience. But one of their critical core competencies is collaboration. And the idea that if you are a PhD, and if you're not going to take feedback from a more junior person who might have an associate's degree and no experience, then how much collaboration and innovation, which is another core competency of theirs, are you going to have? So when they recruit, they have those senior people that come in that are candidates. They'll lead a presentation on how to, basically we give them a fake RFP for a client and say to the senior person, you're going to lead a discussion with all these researchers on how you propose we attack the RFP. And in the room are their peers at the company that we're looking, they're looking to be hired at, but also some more junior employees. And we look to see if the junior employee makes a suggestion, has a question, are they talking down to that person or are they valuing it? Because that has there's a lot to be learned from people with less experience as well. Okay, one of the biggest complaints of the millennials is that they want a lot of feedback. People feel that they're needy, they want a ton of feedback. One of the biggest complaints from millennials is that they don't get the feedback. And there are a lot, and I will say a lot of this can be generational. I once worked at a company and said, wow, so-and-so never really says thank you. And my boss said, you get a paycheck every Friday. That's your thank you. So that's a very old school mentality. And there are some people that have that mentality. Hey, I get a paycheck. I come in. I do my job. Fine with me. But with millennials, it's different that those who consistently receive feedback from the managers report being satisfied on the job. That being said, 74% of them feel that they're in the dark about how they're performing. Now, keep in mind, this is a generation that is in constant contact with everything out there, that with the news, with the media, with texting. So they're used to immediate feedback. And the fact that they're not getting a ton of it, really can be difficult for them. So you need to, as a manager, check in regularly and encourage your managers to check in regularly. And what they're going to hear is, great, that means I'm having meetings every 2 seconds and I'm too busy working to have meetings. We need to tell managers it doesn't have to be super formal. It could be popping in for 2 seconds in the morning, hey, how things going? I know with our employees that we're so heavy on project management, you really can get lost. So once a day, I'll touch base with each employee just to be like, okay, what's on our plate? What are we doing here? What do we need to move? Just for like 3 or 4 minutes. And sometimes something comes up, it's longer, but just to touch base so that they feel that they're being heard, and quite frankly, so that we can reprioritize if we need to. Highlight career opportunities that they can have. I would strongly suggest getting some formal career pathing in there if you can. And I would also suggest getting some job bands in there if you can around compensation as well, especially for those of you with either your headquarters in New Jersey or most of your employees in New Jersey with the Equal Pay Act. It's really important to have a real structure behind how you're paying people for morale and retention and just being a decent employer as well, but also to make sure that you're in compliance. And be candid about how success is measured. Definitely be open about that and transparent, and foster an environment that rewards hard work. Those two go together because, again, I have a lot of exit interviews where people will say, hey, I feel like the brunt of the work is on the same 5 people and the other people aren't carrying their weight, but they're friendly with the boss, or they're the pet and they get away with it. Now, on exit interviews, you do have to take stuff potentially with a grain of salt, right? People are leaving because on some level they're unhappy. It's very seldom that they're transferring across the country. But when you're starting to see trends over and over again, this is where it's important. And this is, again, why I think pulse surveys are so important, anonymous pulse surveys, to get feedback, because the injustice of feeling not valued, seeing other people maybe not doing as hard of a job as you, them getting promoted, them getting a higher rate of pay, that really sticks in the craw of today's workforce. And today's workforce are not stuck in a position like even we were 5 years ago, where we'd have to say, well, got to stay here because there's nowhere place for me to go. They can go. So again, compliance reasons, Equal Pay Act, all that type of stuff aside, even just for morale and retention and running your business, you need to have that. And I know those of you on the phone know this, but I'm sure your managers usually don't, and will come to you and say, hey, employees can't be talking about their salaries. I want to fire them if they do that. No, they can talk about their salaries. They can't disclose confidential information about someone else's salary. They can't rummage through your personnel files and your payroll and send all that out. But they can say, hey, I just got a $2,000 bonus. What did you get? You got $5,000 bonus? What did so-and-so get? And they can have those discussions, and those are protected discussions. And quite frankly, if you're doing things the right way anyway, it shouldn't matter. Creativity and assignments. So there are some people who like to know what they're doing and like to feel comfortable in it. Let me explain this. I don't process payroll often. I only process payroll for maybe 3 of our clients, and they use whatever payroll provider they have, and I just process it on their behalf. I can process payroll in my sleep. It's kind of nice when I process payroll. It's kind of nice to just pour a cup of coffee, go through that kind of route. It's kind of what I'm used to doing. But there are other people that if they have too much of those route jobs, get very bored, and they want to be challenged. And today's workforce, more than any other workforce, wants that. Okay, they're more than twice as likely as older generations to try to tackle new and variety of creative tasks. And these creative tasks are crazy. It could be anything from building a mobile app, which I wouldn't even know where to get started, to knitting. Like knitting is like a trend with young people now. So it's not necessarily just a tech savvy task. It's really a wide range. And look at what the younger workforce is. They're also more educated. I mean, my mother was so insistent on me getting a 4-year degree because back in her day, very few women went to college. And if almost none of them graduated. And, she had an associate's and always felt like, wow. And believe me, she was one of the most educated people in my family with the associates, particularly as a woman. Nowadays, college is the new high school. almost everyone's going to college or getting, thank goodness, a trade, right? And so, which I'm glad that we're putting more emphasis on trades. So you have people that are more educated, want to be challenged, and want to be stimulated. So it's very important to allow freedom in work assignments when you can. The job still has to get done, but if they want to maybe try to loop in another department to talk about it, if they want to try a new tactic, it's important to allow them to do that when you can. And give them the opportunity to explore different interests. I have had employees leave jobs. They're working on prestigious accounts, world famous accounts that they're thrilled to be working on, but guess what? They've been working only on that account for 1 or 2 years, but they feel that they're being pigeonholed. They feel that they won't be marketable in the workplace moving forward because that's been their only experience, and they're bored. And they want to have an experience to work on a different account or two. And that would make the difference in them staying, which leads to providing cross-training opportunities. And making a difference. Nearly 9 out of 10 millennials would consider taking a pay cut to work at a company whose mission and values align with their own, which again is why it's so important to identify your values and promote them. You have 2/3 won't even consider taking a job if the organization doesn't have strong corporate social responsibility values. And you see some of the larger conglomerate businesses, quite frankly, like McDonald's is one of them, they won't even have vendors that their vendors have to prove that their I-9s are in order, that they're paying people properly, all these different types of things, because they won't even do business with, so you have big businesses that won't even do business with companies that don't do that. So let alone employees. And nearly 90% say they do a better job in these environments. So again, not one size fits all, but look at ways to demonstrate social and economic accountability. Like Apple has a clean water program, and that's reduced the use of fresh water by their suppliers' processes and improved the impact of treated wastewater. So to date, the program has saved an estimated 8 billion gallons of fresh water. To employees and to some of the people that they're working with, that's very important. Provide paid time off for volunteer activities. So Deloitte, volunteers are paid for all hours, not all businesses can do all hours, so they participate in the company's volunteer programs with no limit. So some of our smaller companies maybe don't have no limit, but they might give 1 day off a year that you can participate in a volunteering activity. Or they might, as a company, choose something to volunteer at. And I love that idea because employees can smell a team building activity a mile away. But if you are doing volunteer activities, there's your team building activity. And it's not corny, and you're not, doing one of those rope courses and falling back on someone and seeing if they'll catch you. I mean, this is meaningful work where you are actually working together as a team. And provide opportunities for employees to get involved. A lot of people want to give back, they just don't kind of know how. So a couple of my clients are adopting families for the holidays. A couple of my clients did the, Dress for Success for the Suits for Work. For people that need those clothing, and do those clothing drives. When it comes back to school, do school supply drives. When the winter comes, to do coat drives. And just putting that out there to employees makes them feel like, wow, great, this is something I can do. And it makes them feel that they're working for an employer who cares. So the next part, and I'm sorry if I'm going too fast, but I realize we're getting a little close toward the time, but benefits. You have a much more health-conscious workplace today, and a comprehensive benefits package is very important. You have 35% of millennials who have turned down a job because they're dissatisfied with the insurance offerings. And many more companies now are starting to offer benefits day one. And so that's become more and more of an issue where people want it sooner. And they're also looking for jobs that don't require them to abandon the healthy habits that they've established between the hours of 9 to 5. So meaning 9 to 5, they don't want to necessarily be chained to a desk and they can't, be able to get up and walk around or go grab a salad. And I know that we're not that archaic with those things, but I have some clients that have a shower facility and employees go running in between. Or they'll stay after work and there's in-house exercising, or they have food brought in that's all organic and farm to table. So, think about offering benefits day one, if you can do that. Or definitely, as soon as possible. I know in New Jersey the longest you can go is 90 days, but think about that. Give them a choice in their benefits. This generation, the HSAs are becoming more and more attractive to them. Prior generations don't necessarily want to think about consumer-driven healthcare because, it is frustrating, and you can't oftentimes find the information. What does an what does an MRI cost to be able to, or what does this X-ray cost to be able to shop things? But this generation is a little bit more into having choice and into having control over their healthcare dollars. And think about emphasizing wellness with group workouts. Again, think about it. Think about if it's going to work in your organization. Some of my companies have gyms. And they're not huge companies. Some of our companies have a trainer or nutrition who'll come in. Standing desks. I have a 10-employee company, and all their desks are the ones that go low, raise high, all their chairs like that. So what used to be in HR, this would be the accommodation for somebody that would need to have a standing desk, is becoming standard office equipment more and more, even for smaller companies. More companies are putting healthy snacks in their company, and more companies are providing these snacks and foods free of charge. And there's an economic driver to that as well, where I know for me, end of the day around 4 o'clock, I get hangry. And if I don't have a snack, I'm pretty much done at 5 because I've lost it and I want to get home and I want to eat something. But if I have a rice cake with peanut butter, I can work till 6 or 6:30 and I can get more done. And when I'm hangry, I make mistakes and I snip at people. So that's not what you want, right? So that's an idea. I remember when I went to Bloomberg in the Princeton area when I was studying for my SPHR. That's where Sherman had a class. And I was amazed by their organization because it was an amazing cafeteria that was completely free. And I mean, all the stuff like 3 meals a day plus all the snacks you could want and healthy snacks and goldfish crackers and gourmet coffees. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. And you could even take food home. So if you were working and let's say you didn't, now it's 5:30, 6 o'clock, and you're like, oh, crap, how am I going to, get home and make dinner and all this? Guess what? You could order food from them or go over there and just take it and take it home. And I thought to myself, how does this company afford doing this? And then I realized, well, okay, first of all, if it were me, the first week of this being offered, I'm eating manila crackers and manila cookies and goldfish crackers, and they're probably going to lose money on me. But after about a week, I'm probably going to be done, pillaging their stock, and then I'm going to settle into a more normal routine. And when it's 4 o'clock and I'm hangry, I'm not going to do a crappy job till 5 and then leave. I'm going to stay, do a better job, and probably work a little longer. Number 2, around 10:30, I'm not running around asking everyone what they want for lunch, and we're looking for menus and who wants sushi and who wants pizza and who would prefer Panera and how much money has this person have, and then running out to get it. And so it's increasing productivity as well. And then also when you're offering people healthy food, and I know, the manila cookies aren't always the healthiest, but there were other healthy food options. People are more inclined to try to take those. And that does lead to decreased healthcare costs, but again, also happiness in general and productivity because you have a healthier workplace. And some flexible schedules. So I come into some organizations and at 9:30 people still aren't even really there. But then they're working till 8 o'clock at night. Or like I said, they're going out and taking a jog in the middle of the day. So think about those things as well. Retirement, millennials lived through the recession. So they're more sensitive, believe it or not, to making contributions to their retirement. So their average age of starting to put money away is 24 compared to 33 for boomers. So it's really a huge thing. And my thing when I go into companies is this is one area where I will say, don't let technology do it. Don't lean on, hey, millennials are tech savvy. No, hire an excellent TPA and an advisor. That is so huge. It's not a huge, first of all, it's not a huge investment. What's a TPA? For most companies, it's a couple grand a year. It's worth every penny. And advisors work on the commissions from what they do, and they should be able to meet with employees regularly and go through things and answer questions. And encourage the advisor education. So you all know from ERISA that one of your responsibilities is to make sure that the regular education is being provided as part of the fiduciary responsibility. And I'll have some companies that'll say, well, no one's really interested in meeting with the advisor. Dude, I don't care. It's part of our fiduciary responsibility. So-and-so from Wells Fargo is coming on site this day. This way at least proves that we did have him come on site. And you know what? Someone will say no one wants to meet with them. So-and-so from Wells Fargo comes on site and people end up meeting with them. And having them available and having their phone number and their email address really makes a big difference. Consider default enrollment. More and more companies are doing that, where you're enrolled in the retirement plan unless you opt out. And offer choice and multiple offerings in what people are doing, whether it's a Roth, 401k, people are offering more options and benefits. You all know that work-life balance has been a trend for a number of years now. With millennials, they value this over extra money. Again, when I do an exit interview, you have to realize I don't say to people, why are you leaving? That's too easy, right? Well, I'm leaving because I'm moving. I'm leaving because I'm getting another job. I'm leaving. So what I do is I actually ask, I'm going to ask you components. Tell me if any of these components had anything to do with you leaving. And if they did, just say yes, and we'll rank them in the next section. Okay, benefits. Well, not really, but kind of. Okay, compensation. Well, yeah. Opportunity for advancement. Yeah. Right? And then they go through and we rank them all. I have them all and then we rank them. So I'll have somebody who'll say, well, it's really because I'm moving. Well, guess what? Once she lists all those things out and we rank them, turns out that moving was like number 4 on the list. So one has to wonder if the work-life balance was there that she rated as number 2, or the opportunity for advancement, which was number 1, or the feeling appreciated, which was number 3, would the moving number 4 had happened. So the flexible hours can make the workplace more productive if people aren't stressed out about what time they need to leave to get home to do whatever they need to do. Or maybe some people aren't morning people and they're more productive if they come in later. Maybe some people are morning people and by 3 o'clock they peter out. So when you can do that, that's really important. You have in flexible environments, you have a greater report of people feeling personally accountable for their organization's reputations, compared with just 12% in companies with less flexibility. So the talk about we want employees to feel ownership, we want them to be engaged, to feel like owners themselves, that's going to happen more and more with flexibility. So allow for flexible arrangements when possible. Focus on work accomplished as opposed to work hours. Can't tell you how huge this is. Again, this goes back to a more old-fashioned mentality, which is, hey, you worked 50 hours this week, that means you're a dedicated employee. Well, how productive are they on the 48th hour, really? So focus more on the work that's being accomplished. Maybe they're getting their work done in 7 hours, or they just take a less of a lunch, or they don't need as much downtime. So focus on that and invest in benefits that promote work-life balance, and really think about what those benefits are going to be. And we're running a little tight on time. I want to get to a couple of other slides, so I'm going to move forward. But when you're looking at the work-life balance, think about some of the benefits that we're going to get into, but think about PTO. PTO that can be used for any reason. PTO that doesn't necessarily need to be given 2 weeks notice before taking. You know, if Friday is going to be, what's today, Wednesday? If Friday is going to be slow and I've got all my work done and I go to you and say, hey, I know it's last minute, but I found a cheap Caribbean cruise for the weekend. Are you cool if I take off? What do you care? Allow that to be flexible instead of some of these more stodgy policies that say, hey, people need to give 2 weeks notice or a month's notice before taking off, and they can only take off time in a week at a time. Those are more kind of old-fashioned. Look at family-friendly policies. Millennials now are the largest group of new parents, and they're also twice as likely to have a spouse or partner working full-time than baby boomers. So family-friendly policies are very important to them. 83% would leave their job for one with better family and lifestyle benefits. And 40% of young U.S. workers are so unhappy with the lack of paid parental leave benefits that they would consider moving to another country. And I will tell you, in your slightly larger market, you know, you're 50 and above, you have FMLA. But even with FMLA, you know, that's job protected, it's not paid. And very few companies have parental benefits. If they have anything, it'll be disability for when the woman gives birth. as opposed to parental benefits, which would be paid time off for the mother and the father for not just birth, but maybe adoption or fostering or anything like that. So you do see that there is getting to be an increase in maternity leave. But what I'm really encouraging companies to do is really look at parental leave. So that would include paternity leave, that would include adoption, include foster care, and also time off for doctor visits and school events. Now, we have that in New Jersey a little bit with the new Paid Sick Leave Act, which, as you know, the new Paid Sick Leave Act isn't just for sick leave. It's up to 40 hours of paid time off in a benefit year, which most people are defining as a calendar year, for, yes, sick, but also to take your child or a family member to the doctor, and also to go to maybe a school conference or things like that. But I say even school events. I say have policies where, and again, this goes back to flexible schedules, let them go to their kids' play at noon. Let them leave at 3:30 because they have to take their kid, get their kid ready for baseball practice. I have a lot of companies, and then that person gets back online later on, and they feel more motivated, and it actually gives them a little bit of a break, and they're more productive as that time goes on. So that's very important. And speaking of millennials having babies, there are a lot of millennials who aren't having babies, and their starter kit is pets. So you have them getting a dog or a cat and trying to figure, and kind of doing that and starting that out as new couples. They're the primary pet owning generation. And 90% of employees in pet-friendly workplaces feel highly connected to their company's mission. So there are more pet-friendly benefits that you see, like take your pet to work day. There are many times when I walk into, it used to be I would walk into a garage or more of a blue collar type work environment, and there'd be, the old fluffy dog on the floor. I walk into professional offices now, and it's not just the little dogs. It's big dogs. It's all different types of dogs that are there that make people feel more comfortable. I swear to you, paternity, fraternity leave. Now, we have always happened to adopt older dogs. But when we had the kids, we went to Monmouth County SPCA, and they had a whole bunch of puppies who had come up from the south, and we had adopted a puppy just because, with our kids being so little at the time, we were concerned with if we get a dog that's older, what if it had been abused or something like that? What would be the issue? We didn't really care as much when it was just me and my husband. We could handle that. But with little ones, we wanted to be careful. First time in my life I've had a puppy. Oh my God. I swear to you, having a baby is easier. Every time I turn around, this thing is chewing. I just took it outside to pee. It came back inside and peed. What are you talking about? I mean, it was brutal. It needs to be walked. It needs to be fed. I couldn't even believe this. And it really struck me. What if I had a, quote, real job? Because at that point, I had flexibility because I owned my own business. What if I was stuck at a desk? What if I had a real job? So allowing somebody to be able to run home in a work hour, lunch hour, allowing somebody to, when they first get the dog, maybe come in and work 10 to 4 because the dog can only be left alone for so long. Pet insurance, and I swear to you, pet bereavement leave. But you know what? I do see this. One of the executive assistant at one of our clients just had to put her cat down. She took the day off from work. Of course you would. You're a mess when that happens, any of you who have that. So these are some of the other benefits that we see out there, as well as student loan repayment. We hear this in the news all the time. It actually is a hot thing in New Jersey, if you've been following politics, about not just student loan repayment, but potentially benefits toward tuition. We have student debt has doubled since 2001. And the current U.S. student loan debt is $1.5 trillion, with the average debt of close to $40,000 per person. And the average monthly expense of student loans, do you know what that does to a person? I mean, have you ever been in debt? Have you ever felt, not been able to feel like you can afford things, that you can qualify for things? It really takes a toll on people's health, their work performance, their relationships. All of that translates to the work environment. So you have borrowers who say they would stay in a job they didn't like. Not that we want them to. We want them to like their job, but due to a student loan obligation, and that they would value a student loan refinance benefit. But yet we have only 4% of companies providing those loan repayments. So there are more and more vendors out there now that are working with companies to provide these benefits. And it's so almost like investing in your employee with a 401k match. It works very similar to that, where you then are matching and helping them pay down their student debt. And you see an increase in employee commitment to companies to do that. So they take advantage, 92% would take advantage of a match for loan repayments similar to 401k. And they would use long-term financial planning tools, and they would take advantage of free access to student loan debt counselor. And incidentally, this isn't just for the people with current student loans. These types of counseling could be given to people like me who are trying to figure out how to avoid having my kids have student loans that I have to prepare for. So what is my financial path to making sure that I'm putting aside enough money so that my kids won't have student loans? And that can be offered as well as a benefit. So the takeaway for you hiring managers, I know we talked a lot about retention, and you're going to say, okay, well, this is supposed to be about recruiting. The takeaway is promote your business even when you're not recruiting. Okay, you are always on, and make sure that you're promoting. You should always be, quote, recruiting even when you're not recruiting. So whether you're talking to schools and colleges before you even need someone down the road, and focus on the company's mission and values. Again, I can give you that company's information to do a video. I don't know what they cost, but they did an amazing job on that. Whether you're doing a video, whether you're putting it on your website, whether you're having employees and recording employees just talking about what it means to work at your company. Promote career opportunities and development. Don't just when you're posting for a job, just the job duties and the job responsibilities. That's a very much what can you, candidate, do for me as an employer. Flip the script. Talk about what you can offer that candidate, what some of the opportunities are down the road, and what your focus is as a company to develop and train and invest in that employee long term. Company culture and environment, as I mentioned, you should be promoting, and the benefits will be huge. So you need to rethink that hiring strategy, which some of you have probably already started doing, because I'm sure you're starting to feel the vice of the economic environment right now. And for HR, we need your help to define the roles and career paths for employees, and to make sure that there's fair and transparent compensation. Employees are going to find out what other people are making because they're going to talk. And heaven forbid somebody comes up and says you're not paying me fairly. With the new Equal Pay Act, there's a 6-year look back period and triple damages. So that's the last thing that you want to face, besides the fact that you really do want people to be paid fairly. It's the right thing to do, and it leads toward more productivity and retention. Develop mentorship programs. Train your managers on how to do that. Look at what flexible benefits you can offer. A lot of the benefits I mentioned don't come with a price tag. So think about what is the cost benefit to your organization, and look at ongoing training and development opportunities. Honestly, even telling employees and promoting things like a free webinar like today and saying, hey guys, if you want to take this before you go to lunch, or hey, here's a topic I think you'd be interested in, it makes people feel valued. So we are a little over. Here's my contact info if anyone wants to reach out on anything. And I guess I'll turn it back to you, Vinny.
Thank you, Cristina. So we know we're beyond the 12 o'clock hour. I know a lot of you want to go to lunch. A lot of you have 12 o'clock meetings. We don't have a hard stop. If you do, by all means, go ahead and go to that. Everyone who registered for this webinar is going to be sent the recording tomorrow automatically, so you won't miss out on anything. You can also always check out our webinars, past and present, at youtube.com/NJBIA. So before we get started, just a couple of things I want to do. We have a couple questions here already, but I'm going to give people a chance to type in anything they have. I'm going to remind you about the handouts tab. We get a lot of questions from people asking how they can download the PowerPoint slides. You just open up your handouts tab and they're right there. And there's the questions tab. If you have a question, type it in right there, and I'll make sure that Cristina answers it. Don't be shy. We have an expert here, so make sure to take advantage of her. Can't tell you how many times I read the post-webinar evaluations and I see someone disappointed that a relevant topic wasn't covered, that maybe it was too in the weeds, that maybe it was too broad. This is your chance to get it exactly what you were hoping to get. So with that, I'll go to our first question that comes from Amanda, who asks, what can companies do to start preparing for Gen Z?
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, so Gen Z is coming up, depending on how you look at it there. Again, all these stats have slightly different birth rates, but they're around age 20, 21 right now. And the good news is in terms of if you've put in a lot of projects in place for millennials, it's not going to be an initiatives in place to attract and retain millennials. It's not too different from that. Very similarly motivated, very tech savvy. The slight difference for you with them is that they do want a little bit more ownership, like stock options and stuff like that. They want a little bit more skin in the game for what they're doing, or a share in the profitability of some of the things that they're doing. And also they are more into having a little bit more privacy and solo activity. So as much as they collaborate, just like the millennials, this is going to be your generation that is going to find open concept offices frustrating if they don't have a private one that they can go to. And they definitely want to have competitive salaries. That's going to be slightly more important to them than the millennials.
Donna asks, can you provide some tips or suggestions on how you can get a millennial to look for resources and find answers on their own without asking for the answers?
Sure. So that happens a lot. I find, to be honest with you, even with me, with every generation, because as a manager, I think sometimes it's so much easier for us to just do it or give the answer. So what I've been doing when somebody comes to me is say, okay, where do you think you would look for that? Or I might say, okay, here are some sites or here are some places I would suggest. Can you take a stab at taking a look through that and giving me some of your feedback? And, if there's pushback on that, which I don't think there will be, there are a number of different ways to play it. First of all, a lot of times I push my team to research is that, especially in HR and especially in New Jersey, what I knew yesterday could have changed. So, hey, I have somebody with a drug problem. Can we see if that's covered under the ADA? Well, I don't think it is covered under the ADA. Are you sure? Let's look. Oh, shoot, it is if somebody actually is seeking treatment. And here's what we need to do as an employer. So oftentimes I play ignorant because, quite frankly, I think one of the, well, to be honest, because I am, because what I knew yesterday has changed. So I think it's important. One of the biggest mistakes people make is that they think they know it. So I think if you can say to an employee who comes to you with a question or comes with something and say, hey, that's a really good topic, or that's a good suggestion, would you, I think it would be great if you could look into that and come back to me with, your top 3 recommendations. And see if there's pushback on that. And then if there is, I would attack it honestly and say, I think this is a great opportunity for you to learn. And quite frankly, things change from day to day. So I'm very interested in seeing what you come up with.
Here's one from Angelo, who asks, we are a company of 7 people and we offer 2 paid volunteer days per year, yet they don't use it. What can I do to get them out in the community?
That's awesome that you do that. Not many companies do, particularly your size. I think what I would do in that instance is I would come up with the volunteer activity as a company activity. Like, hey, everyone, we're going to go do, the Susan Komen Walk for Cancer, or we're going to go to, lunch break in Red Bank and feed people dinner or something like that. I think I would try that as a company initiative.
George asks, what is the biggest mistake you see businesses making in attraction and retention?
I see it really as the one size fits all, and that not asking employees and engaging with employees in real time. So again, few organizations do exit interviews. It's great that they do. I highly recommend it. I do recommend it that an outside party do it. I think it's more impartial and can dig a bit deeper. But you need to do something with that data, number one. And so employers need to do that. And more employers need to be doing regular surveys. And you don't have to call them satisfaction surveys. In fact, I wouldn't. I can't guarantee that they're quote satisfied, but I want to see what their feedback is. And before we roll out an initiative, hey, we're thinking about offering these 5 benefits. Can you rank them in importance to you on a 1 to 5 scale or something like that? And just kind of really getting that feedback as opposed to just saying that, hey, we're going to have this big party. And then everyone's thinking, well, gee, I'd rather have a bonus, or gee, I'd rather work less than 50 hours a week. One of our clients has unlimited time off. Actually, two of our clients do. We don't have a lot of clients that have that. And I get concerned with that from a compliance and fairness standpoint. And if I can explain that, what I mean is that how do I explain when one person gets more time off and someone else gets less, that it really is that someone is just doing a better job as opposed to they're not in one of the 18 protected classes in New Jersey LAD and I'm discriminating against them. And where do you draw that line? I mean, how many of you have workplaces where if I say, hey, guess what, I can get my job done in 3 days a week, you'd be like, okay, great, good for you, keep your full-time salary. So, this whole unlimited time off, what I find oftentimes is that employees will say, I really want to know how much time I get off. Don't tell me unlimited. And number two, I'll have employees leaving who say, well, this is great, I get unlimited time off, but I can't take it. We're so busy, we're so short-staffed, I can't take it. So again, this goes back down to finding out what's really important to employees, because maybe unlimited time off that they can't take might be less important than working a reasonable number of hours per week.
All right, I've got two more here, but keep them coming. Angelo asks, we had to drop health benefits because of the out-of-control costs. What can I do?
That is really difficult. The truth with health benefits is that the way to control costs with it, especially, and I believe Angelo was the one that's a 7-employee organization, if it's the same Angelo with the 2, right? So in that case, you're looking at the only way, if you want to bring the health benefits back to control the cost in terms of premium, as you know, is a ridiculously high deductible. And you could do a high deductible to bring down the cost, and then you could decide whether or not you're going to fund the high deductible with an HRA, which could work because that's a betting game, whether or not they're going to use the HRA and utilize it to actually use those benefits. So I find a number of companies going with ridiculously high deductible plans, putting in the HRA to drive down premium, hoping that there won't be a large utilization of that. But and it also really depends on how important health benefits are to your organization. There are a lot of organizations where one spouse is at, let's say, like in my company, I'm in HR, and it just so happens, we have like a small team of 5. Only one of them's a male. And the other 2 have spouses who work in very large organizations, and they have primary benefits. And I have another female who our benefits are more generous than her spouse at where he's at, so she's going on to our benefits. So I wonder if you have people in your organization who are getting their benefits from a different source, and therefore benefits may not be as important as you think they are. So I'd find out first how important that is to employees, and I would get a really good broker to talk about the options. Again, I have a couple good brokers that I can recommend to you if you want to email me offline. I'm very happy to do that. A good broker is worth everything. In the small group market, the plans are the plans are the plans, the rates are the rates are the rates. So it's not like one broker is going to get you, oh my gosh, such a deal. But they're going to be able to explain to you that this is the better plan to offer for this group of employees, given what they're looking for, and here are your options. And you just may be able to at least get some kind of catastrophic plan in there, if that's what employees need.
Actually, usually don't take the opportunity to get promotional on here, but NJBIA recently started a health benefits program for small employers, so you can check that out at njbia.org/benefits and learn more about that. Our last question comes from June, who asks, what are the top 1 to 3 things every business should be implementing?
So this is going to sound so basic, but I still see it not there. Job descriptions. I swear to you, updated job descriptions, pay grades, and career pathing. That is huge for a myriad of compliance reasons, and also truly for attracting and retaining employees, because word and reputation gets out, especially in this technology age with Glassdoor and people giving reviews. It's really important for people to feel that they're being paid fairly and to know that your company is reputable in that area and that there is career pathing and opportunity for them. So if you have those things, that would be the biggest thing, I would say.
Awesome. Well, that looks like all the questions we have, so I think it's as good a time as any to bring things to a close. Don't forget, all of you will be receiving a recording of today's webinar and the PowerPoint slides via email. Lastly, when you close out of the webinar, a survey will come up on your screen that we hope you'll fill out so we can understand how to best provide you important information in a webinar format. Our next webinar, 2018 Cybersecurity Regulatory Best Practices, will take place Wednesday, December 5th, so by all means, feel free to register for that one on our website at njbia.org. One last thanks to the NJBIA Job Board. Post job openings and find qualified candidates at careercenter.njbia.org. So until next time, for Cristina Amyot, this is Vinny Civitello thanking you for being with us this morning and wishing you a good day.